You're listening to the Downeast Mike podcast, the quirky little podcast from Maine. And now, your host, Downeast Mike. I'm really here. Good morning, everybody. This is Downeast Mike. We started out with just that few seconds of tense silence to make everybody wonder, did he do something wrong? Is his podcast really happening today? Am I really here? What's going on? Why didn't he start out with that dee-dee-dee-dee thing that he does? Downeast Mike deviating from the course of normal activity. What is up with that? Did I ever tell you about the time I was working at the radio station there in New Hampshire, and it was in a strip mall, and it was supposed to be on air at 6 a.m. because they flipped on the bird every day, like at 5:30 or 6. They went to the satellite, and then in the morning it would flip back over to a live broadcast, and it's supposed to be on at 6 a.m. And I lived about an hour away, and I was supposed to open it. It was in a strip mall, and I got down there about 5:30 in the morning, and I was all happy, and I go up to the door and I reach for I forgot the key. And that was the fastest trip home I ever made in my life, and it was just dead air. I had the radio station on, and then all of a sudden on the way back down, I turned that hour drive into like half an hour drive, and so here's the radio station coming live on the air about half hour late. And as about half an hour, I'm come whipping back down, and I hear the station come on the air saying, this could be good, but at the same time, it's probably not so good. And I got in there, and the station manager was leaning up against the counter smoking cigarettes, and he's chain smoked anyway, and he used some pretty choice words with me, but it was something to the effect of, people up every day, and then we have to cover for them or something like that. I don't know if he thought I had quit or what, but I did apologize that I had forgotten the key. Anyway, that was a long way around the story, wasn't it? This is Downeast Mike episode 81, news and commentary for March 24th, 2023. Our motto is, some of this is whimsy, some of it's true, and the interpretation of it all is entirely up to you. And our tongue twister that we start with to get ourselves limbered up is, did you know Downeast Mike contains no mean words, just wholesome goodness from Downeast Maine, a historical literary auditory candy store. And did you hear the bells on the door when you came in? I was also thinking maybe Downeast Mike should go to the pharmaceutical companies and get a sponsorship so we could have ads. We could have like an illness every day, a made-up illness like the drug companies do, the illness of the instant. And I was thinking the first one would be intermittent irritation, because everybody suffers from irritation from time to time. And there would surely be a pill for that, right? This episode of the Downeast Mike podcast is brought to you by intermittent irritation, the pill for all your irritated moments. Or it could be a liquid. We don't do enough with liquids, do we, in a teaspoon? Boy, am I off track. We better get to the headlines of the world right now. If you're just getting up, it's probably nothing that you didn't know when you went to bed. Trump lawyer testified to grand jury in December in a classified documents probe. Yeah. Drone strike kills U.S. contractor in Syria. U.S. retaliates. So we don't know if the U.S. retaliated before the drone strike or after. It's kind of wag the dog moment there. Fetterman's expected back soon after weeks of inpatient treatment at Walter Reed. North Korea is testing nuclear-capable underwater drone. China's threatening the U.S. over U.S. warships' actions. Walmart is laying off hundreds from its warehouses as it doubles down on automation and braces for a new era in online shipping. They haven't got that drone thing delivery quite down pat yet, have they? Pence getting closer to a 2024 decision. He's going to run. U.S. and Canada expected to announce deal on turning away asylum seekers. Anger as Trump posts a picture of himself wielding a baseball bat next to Alvin Bragg's head. What a happy world we live in. How about our Maine headlines? We'll see if there's something here. The Border Patrol uncovers elaborate human smuggling scheme in Maine, officials say. And we'll look at that one a little closer if you want. We'll look at it a little bit closer. Border Patrol, human smuggling in Lisbon, Maine. And we'll come to that in just a second. We'll go back to that one. Maine lawmakers consider a bill to keep funding lobster legal defense. It doesn't mean much, does it? Maine lawmakers hear calls for higher taxes on the wealthy or for no income taxes at all. I'd like to have a tax holiday, wouldn't you? Just no taxes at all for a year or two. Winter storm damage leads to disaster declaration in Maine. And Maine students are showing off their wind turbines during a Kid Wind challenge. Let's go to our podcast today. In today's episode, we have ice out on the Penobscot. On this day, March 24th, 1898. Eagle holding up flights in Bangor on this day, 1972. The Pemaquid dig yields a rare object. 1972. The Godfather was reviewed. And Maine's Mountain of the Moment. So we have a word of the day, Jetton. Jetton or Jeton. It's an inscribed counter or token. Its approximate origin was 1755 through 1765. And it means to throw or cast up or reckon, first recorded in the period 1755. Other words that entered English at around this time include generalization, lame duck, mitt, outfit, and stalemate. We don't have any birthdays today. Nobody called in with a birthday, so send those along. This day, 1972, an unauthorized flight stirs the airport pattern, is the headline. On Sunday, an estimated 100,000 souls made the vernal pilgrimage to the Spanish mission of San Juan Capistrano to await the return of 2,500 swallows from their winter nesting ground in Argentina. At exactly 7:23 a.m., the mission bells pealed, acknowledging the return of the panting passerines and their symbolic significance to the next day's spring equinox. Who wrote this copy? It's like Batman or something. On Thursday, an FAA control tower operator at Bangor International Airport, a Dead River Company aviator and his passenger, and two other pilots cited what may become a harbinger of spring for Bangor and eastern Maine. At approximately 3:15 p.m., Pierre LeBlanc, you don't suppose he was French, do you? A pilot for Dead River Company and his passenger Niles Williams were making their approach for runway 15 when they saw an object in a holding pattern about a mile from the runway at an altitude of 800 to 900 feet. On close inspection, they found they were sharing the public airways and the airport's approach pattern with a local resident, a mature bald eagle, which had apparently stopped over the airport from his nesting ground on the Penobscot. We were about 200 feet from him, said LeBlanc. He was paralleling us and turning slowly. He was all white from the shoulders up, a great big fellow, and he got close enough to us so we could really see him well. The eagle was obviously enjoying himself. When they notified Terry Moranci, the assistant chief in charge of the tower, he took out his field glasses and sighted on the bird, which was lazily circling over Herman, Route 2, and the Bangor Drive-In. He was in a traffic pattern, we know that, blah, blah. So he's a hazard to aircraft navigation like a flock of geese. Moranci said, though, that the eagle, which had put in an appearance at the airport 3 or 4 times last summer, presented no immediate danger to aircraft. The warning to approaching planes, he said, was standard under the situation. In fact, Moranchi said that 2 or 3 aircraft saw him and he was no problem. Last summer he was here quite a bit. He's just a large bird and evidently full grown. Speculating as to why the national bird should decide to adopt a holding pattern in BIA's approach zone, Moranchi said, there are a lot of snakes, rabbits, and mice around the runway. We get quite a few hawks, too. So the big story there is that this bald eagle is a rare sighting. And today, of course, they've come back in huge numbers, and they're almost like seagulls. You see them everywhere. LeBlanc, when asked if his affinity for his fellow aviator had produced any insights into the situation, merely replied he was happy as could be. It's spring. Yesterday's temperature is 44 degrees, the high at 3 p.m. Well, that's a nice story. There's a story also on this day, 1972. Sex discrimination works both ways, a newsman learns. It's from Charlotte, North Carolina. A man who tried for 2 weeks to get a job as a secretary and was turned down by at least 40 companies found that sex discrimination can work both ways. An Associated Press reporter put himself in the secretarial job market asking only $85 a week. He had 4 years of college and typed 60 words a minute. The newsman applied mostly through a personnel agency, since all efforts on his own were met with replies that the job had already been filled. Prospective employers dealing with the employment agency counselor were more blunt about their reasons for rejecting a man for the secretary's job. To be quite frank, said the counselor, Don Bridges, a lot of men simply want someone who can do the job, but they want some nice young chick around who has nice legs. Bridge is with the Republic personnel in Charlotte, North Carolina. He did not know the applicant was a newsman until after 40 to 60 companies rejected the idea of hiring a man for a secretarial position. At least 20 other companies actually had openings for jobs as secretaries, Bridges said, and others usually take well-qualified applicants to fill positions later in the high turnover field. Some of them simply said they wanted a woman for the job and didn't give any other reason, Bridges said. I pointed out discrimination, but they wouldn't budge. Not a single company granted the newsman an interview. Bridges said a woman with the same qualifications would have had little difficulty nailing down a job. This is 1972. Well, we saw movies on this day. It would have been Clint Eastwood and Dirty Harry, one of the year's 10 best, the Bayou Theater in Bangor. And Black Beauty was playing as well, the children's matinee. You could see George C. Scott in The Hospital. And what was their tagline here? Watch them operate, George C. Scott, The Hospital. I don't know how far that one went. There was a review of The Godfather was just out. Francis Ford Coppola's filmed interpretation of the book The Godfather is superb, engrossing, and superior in all aspects of movie making, direction, photography, acting, and editing. Cast under a weird glow of Rembrandt lighting, Marlon Brando, long absent from the screen, emerges under the orange pall as an aging, ghostly mafia chieftain, rich, domineering, and loving, yet grotesquely restricted to the world he has carved himself into. That sounds like me. In that period, shortly after the Second World War, the Don is attempting to pursue a life of ease, content with his blood relations moving from school to marriage, presenting him with godsons. Since the era of concrete coffins has long since passed, the Don is attempting to gracefully transcend to a clean life. So intent is he, in fact, that we find him at a meeting of gang lords, shunning the fat financial dope business because of its lurid appeal. Yet it is this same man who can still present a gun with a contract you can't refuse to sign to those who prohibit him from helping a friend, like some tribal chief assisting a warrior. Or when the person is more useful alive than dead, he can help a friend by lopping off the head of the horse belonging to his pal's adversary. When the other gang lords decide to step in on the Don's territory, Al Pacino, as the Don's son, emerges as a ruthless killer reminiscent of the late 40s and 50s when ignition keys ignited bombs, barber chairs were beers, and a ride to the airport became a necktie patty. Pacino does a superb job as the cold, indifferent mobster whose blood runs warmly for his family. With others, he holds little compunction in plugging two men straight in the face with a revolver. Coppola and Puzo have captured the life and times of a gangland chief in all of its chilling and brutal reality. They expose it carefully, bringing out the full misery of gangland life. Well, if you weren't motivated to go watch that again, you should be by now, huh? The J. Giles Band was playing at the Bangor Auditorium. It says the J. Giles Band looking for love, plus Sweat Hog and Hallelujah. So they came for Hallelujah and Sweat Hog, but they stayed for the J. Giles Band. They're looking like they've been living in a van down by the river. Tickets $4 and $5. At the Chichaco, Lewis Point, Damariscotta, you can make your Easter reservations, and it just says, thanks for your patience. We open for the season Saturday, April 1st, serving daily 11:30 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. I remember going there for a nice grilled cheese sandwich and potato chips and ginger ale with my dear beloved past grandparents. Many years ago, that was always a fun outing. Stars of the Grand Ole Opry: Sonny James and the Southern Gentlemen, Hank Snow, Dick Curlis, and Freddie Hart, again at the Bangor Auditorium. $5 at the door, $4 in advance. Wow. Good times were to be had back then. You could also go to Grant's Bradford House. Treat yourself. All the fish you can eat for $1.29. You get mouth-watering fish, plus French fries, creamy coleslaw, rich tartar sauce, lemon wedge roll in butter. Now, all you can eat and fish in the same sentence. Okay, police beat. This is just a good old-fashioned police chase. You know, the old the good old with tires squealing around the corner. No one's really hurt. Just some adrenaline. It's from the police beat. Early Thursday morning, Officer Joseph Ferland called dispatcher Earl Brulette at the Bangor police station, reported that he was behind a van and truck speeding out of Broadway, and he's not about to stop. 2 more cars were dispatched to the area, and Lieutenant James McCarthy sped to the location. Officer Ferland caught up with the van just over the Bangor line and tried to force him to the side of the road. I wonder if they used pit maneuvers back then. The van struck the rear of the police car, and both vehicles piled into a snowbank. No one was injured. There was no damage. The driver of the van took off through the woods. Police are still trying to find him, and the police cruiser is back on duty, and the van's impounded in a garage. You see, just good old-fashioned police chase, just fun. Mammoth Mart. This day, 1972, you could buy spark plugs for 59 cents. They're good-looking Champion spark plugs, too. Greater gas mileage, quicker starts. STP motor oil in a can. Those are the ones you'd see at the dump. 69 cents. St. Joseph's aspirin for children, 1 1/4 grain dose, 4 for $1. Wilkinson sword, razor blades, 4 for $1. And some reversible Nyla Fair braided rugs. You know, the kind of rug that Cat likes to throw up the little hairball on. $10 for a braided rug. This was Mammoth Mart, what else do we... Oh, cassette tapes, 3-pack blank cassettes, 99 cents. 60 minutes of blank cassette tapes. That's the kind of thing you'd spend 60 minutes recording onto, and you play it twice, and then it goes, it'd be all wound around your cassette player in the car. Okay, here's our story from 1972. The rare counter is discovered. So let's look at that story. This is out of Pemaquid. Archaeologists have discovered a tiny coin-like object here, which experts say is only the second of its kind found in the world. A series of coincidences led to its identification as a jeton, which is a mathematical counter. We looked at that earlier. Manufactured early in the 18th century at Nuremberg, Germany. At first, the workers thought the jeton was a coin, perhaps similar to hundreds of others found at the site since 1965. I'm thinking hundreds of coins were found in Pemaquid. The resident archaeologist, Mrs. Helen Camp, subjected the 3/4-inch piece to a magnifying glass analysis. In other words, she looked at it, picked up some of its features, including what she thought to be 4 shields on its reverse side. Late in February, she drove to Williamsburg, Virginia, where the find was subjected to the scrutiny of America's foremost expert on colonial artifacts, Ivor Noel Hume. Noel Hume devoted a great deal of time looking at it, and he was pleased to report that your counter is of the same thickness as mine, and also like mine, it measures 19 millimeters in diameter. I think you will agree that it's an astonishing piece of luck that you should find the only other known example of this counter in Maine, and that you should happen to bring it to me. Such other little successes that make life exciting and worthwhile. Noel Hume said it's important to note that many very thin brass pieces were found in the 16th and 17th century archaeological context. They're frequently mistaken for continental European coins, but are actually jetons or casting counters originally intended as mathematical aids. They were frequently traded to the Indians. It's not unusual in pre-colonial times to use items of this sort as mathematical aids. Sources record the use of ivory, pebbles, bits of stone, and coins, as well as the more specialized German-made jetons. Isn't that something? Let's see. He said he identifies it as a counter made by Johann Jacob Dietz, a German jeton manufacturer working in the early 18th century. And they're saying he found one himself in the toe of a leather shoe that he discovered in 1951 upstream from London. Really something. One other thing they mention here, other artifacts found in Structure 13 near the jeton in Pemaquid. They found a scythe blade 3 feet beneath the surface. It was 2 feet long, 2 inches long and 2 inches wide, tapering to a 3/4 of an inch. The tip was missing. In the same grid, we found a good portion of an early 18th century Staffordshire cup. Mrs. Camp describes Structure 13 as a large dwelling dated 1729 to 1760. In addition to the items already mentioned, the site yielded gun flints, musket balls, keys, scissors, a thimble, silver cufflinks, wig curlers, a primitive nursing bottle, iron kettles, a grindstone, trading beads, a Jew's harp, strap hinges, medicine bottles, bird shot, knives, forks, and spoons. Whoever lived there must have been a gunflint nut. I never saw so many gunflints in one place. Also, there were well over 2,000 bird shot and several small seed beads, which were used by Indians to embroider their garments. Isn't that something? Really amazing stuff. It sounds like they just got up and walked away from it and left all that there. Let's see, we'll kind of skip ahead here a little bit. Some headlines. Chilly night for the Robins. There are 90 prisoners at the Auburn jail. This is, we're looking at 1898, March 24th, 1898. Auburn and Lewiston shoe factories received 181,000 pounds of leather for the week ending Wednesday. 181,000 pounds. That's a lot of boots, isn't it? Plans are to be made for a 5 million gallon reservoir on Merrill Hill, Auburn. The proposed 10 million gallon reservoir comes rather high. Contractor Estes has a contract to build a 140-foot addition to the lintel of the sanitary milk supply company on the Houston farm in Auburn, affording accommodation for 60 more cows. The East Auburn branch of the electric streetcar service is getting a generous patronage. Many farmers leave their teams at East Auburn and make the balance of the journey by the electric train. Isn't that something? Lots going on in 1898 in Maine. Floyd Cole, this is some national news in 1898. Floyd Cole, 12 years old, was seriously, if not fatally, injured at Haverhill, Mass. Wednesday afternoon by a toy cannon fired by playmates. We had Police Lieutenant W.F. Burke of San Francisco was shot and killed Wednesday by Park Haynes, the Irish tinker. He's described as being a maniac. The tragedy took place while Lieutenant Burke was trying to arrest the crazy man. The French island of St. Pierre is the source of supply for the smugglers who operate on the Nova Scotia and New England coast. Scores of small vessels are said to be engaged in the traffic, and thousands of dollars worth of liquors and tobacco are smuggled every month. Wonder if that goes on today. Oscar Smith died this morning as a result of an injury sustained while riding a bicycle last Sunday. He was thrown from his machine and struck a telegraph pole. He was picked up in an unconscious condition and remained so until death came. He was 17 years of age. In accordance with the plan decided upon at the last National Convention of the American Federation of Labor, organizations have been working quietly for the last month, organizing men in the building trades in this city, looking to a united demand on May 1st for an 8-hour working day. Some big innovations back then in labor, 1898. They wanted to work just 8 hours a day. The Windlass Company of Bath will begin soon, enlarging their large wharf by extending it into the river. The depth of the water at the wharf makes it imperative to go further into the channel for deeper water. The company petitioned the alderman Wednesday for permission to extend, and a hearing will be held on the 29th. Also noted the coldest morning in Bath Thursday since the start of March. The temperature was 12 degrees below freezing point at sunrise. On this day, 1898, the port of Bangor is again open to the sea, and the first steamboat is expected any hour now, they're noting. This is one of the earliest openings of the river on record, the average time being about April 8th. Only 4 times since 1818 has the river opened earlier than this year. In 1842, the ice went out on March 21st. In 1871, March 13th. It's interesting to note that 1871, the year of the earliest opening, was also the year of the earliest closing, which is November 17th. Business will be good this year on the Penobscot unless war interferes, and the foreign trade is already starting in. Steamships now being on the way here from across the Atlantic to load for Europe. There's an air of explosive growth across the U.S. I think we will go from here to we'll move ahead a little bit because we're running long today in the podcast. So we'll go right to the Maine's mountain of the moment. And here's where confusion sets in once again for poor old Downeast Mike, because I started to look at Crocker Hill, and then I realized it's Crocker Mountain too. So we're going to have a twofer. Crocker Hill is in the Paris Hill neighborhood in the town of Paris. It rises 1,374 feet, Crocker Hill. Crocker Hill mine they had a mine on that hill historically. It's part of the Paris Rumford mining district. It was closed quite some time ago. It was molybdenite and graphite was what they had mined there, or they tried to mine. They also had installed a water system 1899, we note here, the installation of a gravity system of waterworks at Paris Hill is assured the capital stock has been subscribed to the incorporation of the company, and they list all the officers. The preliminary works well underway and work on the reservoir will begin at once. The source of supply is situated on Crocker Hill, east of the village. Land owned by H.E. Hammond, and they have donated a warranty deed of the water rights to the Paris Hill Water Company. The water, in abundant supply, comes from Boylan Springs, more than 200 feet higher than Paris Hill, and away from every possible source of contamination. The State Board of Health, after an analysis of a sample of the water, reported that there's no better or purer water in the state than this. No purer water have thee. And we found a little story about it. The region about Mount Micah in Paris is as beautiful as it is romantic. Its romance is intimately connected with the hermit, Mr. W. Maxim, who once lived there in a house now torn away. Its beauty consists of a series of valleys stretching away in different directions amid the wooded sides of high and rocky hills. You can see Mount Washington from the peak there. The hermit is a much different man from what some of the readers of the journal might infer from reports of his manner of life. The writer was one of his friends 10 years ago and used to enjoy his company. The narrator's first experience with him was on a blackberry excursion instituted by the young people of the village. We were picking berries along the side of the eminence called Crocker Hill when we saw Mr. Maxim seated on a rock among the bushes, looking intently at a hornet's nest 2 feet away on a branch of dead thorn plum. The little pests were coming and going about their business as if they knew there was no danger in the presence of so gentle a man. "Come, young folks, and let me teach you a sermon upon activity," he said. He always has been the friend and intimate of beasts, birds, and bugs, one of his pets at that early time being a tame partridge that he had bred from an egg set under a hen. That was the hermit of Crocker Hill. So then Crocker Mountain is in Carabasset Valley, Maine, and that's about it's over 4,000 feet. So it's if you're going to hike it, it's a 6.5 mile, 4 hours. It's like a 4.5 hour hike if you're going to hike it, and that is part of the Appalachian Trail. So that's a different mountain, or different from Crocker Hill. We always get confused. We start looking up mountain names in Maine. Let's take a quick look at the forecast, and we'll send you out the door to have a good Friday. It's mostly sunny today with a high near 45, west wind 10 to 15 miles per hour with gusts as high as 25. And for Saturday, 30% chance of snow after 4 p.m., increasing clouds with a high near 40. Sunday looks pretty bad. Showers mainly before 8 a.m. and a high near 47. But then next week, sunny days, Monday and Tuesday through Thursday, highs in the 40s. And that's your forecast, and that's your Downeast Mike podcast for today. Until next time, I hope that you and your loved ones enjoy a day that is full of grace, love, and kindness. We'll see ya.
Taking my board, headed for the beach, where all my troubles will soon be out of reach. It wasn't too long you had me down, 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 reminding me that I'm a cowboy on the wrong side of town. Oh, I'm a blue water cowboy, so that wide blue ocean I ride. Kicking back, watching the waves roll in. Another tide, another day goes by, and later on we go for a ride that open highway never lies. Oh, I'm a blue water cowboy, salt water's running in my veins. Yes, I'm a blue water cowboy, on that wide blue ocean I ride. Oh, I'm a blue water cowboy, salt water's running in my veins. Yes, I'm blue water cowboy, on that wide blue ocean